This is the second video in the beginner's guide on how to use Arnold inside Cinema 4D. In this video, I'll be covering all about cameras, so let's get started. There are two ways you can add a camera to your scene and make them an Arnold's camera so you can use them inside it. The first one is going to this camera icon on the right, click on it, and you will find that you have added a camera object to your scene. You can look through your camera and see what the camera is seeing by clicking on this icon right here. While this icon is active, that means we're inside the camera and we're using it to see whatever we want. If this icon is not active, that means we're using the default camera. You can know the difference by looking right here in the viewport. If it's on the default camera, then you're using your normal viewport camera. If it says camera like this, then you're using your object camera, the one you have set up. Also, you will find that the icon is active right here. So let's click on it. This camera is still a native camera inside Cinema 4D, but we want an Arnold camera. So to do that, right click on it, go to extensions, C4D to A tags, and then add Arnold parameters. Now after you've added this tag, you've successfully made your first camera inside Arnold. Let's delete it. The second way to add a camera inside Cinema 4D to be used in Arnold is heading to Arnold's menu and then head to Arnold's camera and then click on any of these. I'll be using the perspective camera. I'll click on it. The first thing that we're going to discuss about the cameras will be inside the object tab, then that would be the projection. Let's change the scene a bit so we can demonstrate it better. I'll add a new camera here. Since we've added a perspective camera, that's its projection, as you can see. We're not using our camera that we've made. We're using the default camera. We want to use the camera that we have just added, so click on this icon here. You can also navigate inside your scene using your camera to place it wherever you want by using the navigation shortcuts. Now for the projection type, normally I leave it at perspective 99% of the time. But in case you're wondering about the other types of the projections and why do we use them, you can use the isometric projection if you're going for this kind of look. Maybe you're making a game or something like this, so you can use this isometric projection. In the isometric projection, you can't rotate your camera or go around your scene, not like you would normally do inside a perspective camera. But let's say that you really want to take the isometric look and still want to rotate however you want and not be locked in this isometric view. There is a projection type called parallel. You can use it to do that, and as you can see, you can still rotate around as much as you want. There are also other projection types, something like military. You can use it if you would like something like this. It's almost a top view of the objects that you have in your scene. You would also have a bird eye, a frog, top view. But as I said, 99% of the time you'd be using the perspective camera. Now for the focal length, consider it as how much of the scene is your camera able to see. Higher values of the focal length means you see less because you're kinda zoomed in. Let's try 80. And the lower values will make you see more of your scene. Let's try 15. You will also feel the difference in the perspective between the focal lenses, something like 20, and the higher values like 100. Next, we have the Compositions tab. This will help you to navigate your camera and make a nice looking composition using something like grid, for example. It divides your camera into a grid. You can control this grid from here. This is the number of cells that you see on your viewport. For now we have 3 cells. We can increase or decrease this as much as we want, or we can change its color to be something like this saturated green. And as you can see, we still have 5 more shapes that we can use to define what kind of compositioning that we want. We have diagonal, which as the name suggests, use the diagonal lines. We can have triangles, crosshairs, the golden sections, and the golden spiral. And each have its own unique tab that you can check on your own. Now head to Arnold's tag, click on it. In the Attributes Manager, we want to enable the depth of field and use the IBR inside Arnold to see what we have. Grab these 3 lines and put them here. As you can see, you have a blurred out image. First thing, after enabling depth of field, we need to define an object that will be our focus point inside our camera. Click on our camera in the Object Manager. In the Object tab, you will find a focus object that we can choose using this eyedropper tool. Click on it and pick this building. You will immediately see the result in the IBR. The image is not blurred as it was. Let's enable our Arnold sky to get more lighting in this scene. In the Arnold tag, you will find the aperture mode, which has the size, the C4D camera, and the f-stop modes. Usually I'm using the f-stop. Let's try messing with these values. Let's try higher values than 1.2. Let's go crazy like 22. Nothing much changed, since higher values will increase the area that we have a focus in it. But on the other hand, if we decrease this value, let's say 1, we will decrease the area that we have a focus in. A value of 1 is still too much. Let's decrease it more. Let's type in 0.1. We'll start seeing the blur effect in the image. Let's take a snapshot of this image by clicking right here on this camera icon. Let's increase this 0.1 to around 0.3. I'll let it render a bit more. Let's take another snapshot of this one. Now let's make a comparison between these 2 snapshots. Click on the first one and mark it as image A. Head to the second one and press on the B one. The first one had a value of 0.1 and the second one had a value of 0.2, and this is the difference between them two. Click on this icon here to swap between the horizontal and vertical comparison lines. On the left we have A and on the right we have B. A was the less value of 0.1, and on the right B, that was the value of 0.3. You can see the difference. Now it's time to talk about motion blur in Arnold, so let's change the scene. I have this fan scene set up so we can use it. First thing, click Ctrl B and then make sure you're using Arnold. Inside Arnold, head to motion blur and enable it. Let's increase the keys to around 5 and leave it like this. Minimize this render setting menu and hit play to use the IBR. We can't see anything happening inside our fan. That's because we need to add a Arnold tag to the fan so that we can use the motion blur on the object. Right click on the fan in the object manager, hit to extensions, C4D2A tags, and add an Arnold parameters tag. Click on show custom parameters and you will find that motion blur is already active, but we can't see it in the IBR. And this is because we need to activate it in the IBR using this button right here. Hold shift and click and drag so we can draw this rectangle so that Arnold will only render this part of the image and not the entire image. You might not have this icon tucked in right here like this. If you don't have it, hit to view and then toolbar and make sure you have your show motion blur button checked. This will enable the icon to be in front of you right here. Now for our motion blur effect, it's already there, but it's too much that we can't really see it. Let's decrease it a bit. Click Ctrl B. From the lens, decrease it to 0.25. Move the render setting on the left. It's still too much. Let's decrease it to 0.1. We're starting to see the effect. Let's decrease the keys. Let's decrease the keys from 5 to 2. And there you have it. This was a basic brief introduction on how you can start using Arnold's camera inside Cinema 4D. See you next time.